What's going on, guys? Mickle here, and in this video, we are going to be covering the latest filing in the Ripple SEC case. The SEC is once again trying to delay handing over the Hinman emails. In this video, I'm going to show you guys everything you need to know about this most recent filing and how exactly it's going to impact the rest of this case going forward. Now, you might be wondering, guys, Mickle, why are you so dressed up for this video? Well, I actually just got done doing a 2-hour-long interview with attorney Fred. At the end of this video, I'm actually going to show you guys a clip of Fred and I talking about this exact issue, but I believe one of the most important topics we're going to cover in this clip is how many more times the SEC can realistically delay handing over these emails. This is a clip you guys are definitely going to want to see, so make sure you stick around until the end of the video. Guys, I'm also going to show you guys an excellent tweet thread by Jeremy Hogan talking about this most recent filing out of the SEC. He's really going to break down how insane the argument the SEC is trying to make here, and you guys are definitely not going to want to miss that. I think it's going to give you guys a very good understanding of what the SEC's motives here and what exactly their end goal is with these endless delays. Guys, if you are new to this channel or come here all the time, please take a second to hit the like and subscribe button down below. It goes such a long way in helping to support this channel, and it means so much to me. If you guys are ever looking for a good place to buy some XRP, make sure to check out the link in the description below. Also, make sure you guys check out attorney Fred's Twitter, which will be linked in the description below. With that said, though, let's jump right into it, and I hope you guys enjoy the content. So late last night, the SEC filed another objection to handing over the Hinman emails surrounding the Ethereum free pass speech. It is highly speculated now that within these emails, there is an extremely damning statement on the status of XRP that could severely hurt the SEC's case in this lawsuit. Now, one of the reasons this is believed is because the Ripple lawyers actually brought up in one of their filings that they believe the SEC has made statements about the status of XRP and specifically within the drafts of these emails. Now, we have to remember that many of the Ripple attorneys did once work for the SEC, so it is highly probable that some of these attorneys could have actually seen XRP directly mentioned in these emails. But it's also extremely important to point out that many lawyers following this case say that they have never seen a party argue a single issue as hard as the SEC is arguing not handing over these emails. This makes many of them think that there is no doubt something extremely damning contained within these drafts of the emails, and that's why the SEC is trying so hard to prevent them from getting out. Now, we know in the past the SEC was denied not handing over these emails based on different privilege arguments. Right here, we have the SEC trying to raise a new privilege argument, which is the attorney-client privilege, and they are trying to say that because of this attorney-client privilege, they should not have to hand over the Hinman emails. Now, that's all fine and dandy that they don't want to hand them over, but let's take a look at what the different lawyers are saying about this and how much water the SEC's argument really holds. This tweet thread put out by Jeremy Hogan was top-notch, and I think it's going to give us a really good idea of basically what is going on here and what the SEC is trying to pull off. Jeremy Hogan said, if you are really interested in attorney-client privilege, then by all means read on. But just know, you are a little messed up in the head. Thanks, Jeremy. Attorney-client privilege requires 3 things, and the SEC is gonna have a problem with all 3 of them. 1, attorney-client privilege, which will now be called AC privilege, requires a communication between an attorney and a client. Was Hinman a client of a zillion different lawyers and non-lawyers who apparently gave input on this speech? If the speech was just his personal opinion, was he even a client of all these lawyers? 2, AC privilege requires the communication to be made in confidence. There were 68 emails related to this speech. The thing I don't think we know, did these emails remain within the SEC and how many lawyers were CC'd? This may also be a problem for the SEC. And I'm actually going to show you guys something later in this video that shows that they might have completely violated number 2. 3, AC privilege requires the communication have provided legal guidance. This is the SEC's biggest problem and why its argument in its motion on this prong is fairly circular. The case law that the SEC is trying to rely on clearly states policy discussions are not legal guidance. So the SEC tries to couch the emails as telling Hinman what he could legally say. And although we don't know exactly what's in the emails, I don't think I'm going out on a limb when I say the SEC is stretching the concept of legal guidance here. So I want to quickly hit on prongs 1 and 3 and then go back and talk about prong 2, because I'm going to show you that the SEC actually destroys this prong on their own in this exact filing, and it's pretty funny. Number 1, Jeremy's pointing out that how is his attorney-client privilege if the speech was just Bill Hinman's personal opinion? That's because if it was his personal opinion, why was he using SEC resources to draft the speech? Therefore, it can't be attorney-client privilege because none of this was being promoted by the SEC, and this is from the SEC themselves. They're the ones who tried to say it was Bill Hinman's personal opinion, so how could attorney-client privilege even apply if this was not done on the accordance of the SEC? Prong 3 actually hits on a similar issue, and this is a huge problem for the SEC because it kind of counteracts their entire argument. AC privilege requires the communications have provided legal guidance, but we know that the SEC's main point in this entire case is that the Hinman speech was not legal guidance. So Jeremy Hogan believes these arguments are fairly circular and are a stretch because the SEC has essentially based this case around the Hinman speech not being legal guidance and therefore not being protected by attorney-client privilege. Now, I also want to point out something very funny around number 2, which is attorney-client privilege requires the communications to be made in confidence and not be handed outside the SEC attorneys. Well, if we take a look at what Ashley Prosper pointed out, it's pretty damning. She said she found this in the footnotes on page 3 of the SEC motion to reassess the attorney-client privilege in this case. If we take a look at what it actually says, and it's pretty bad, it says, although draft 49 is attached to an email from the then director who is not an attorney, boom. Right there, they literally admit that this email chain was sent to people who are not attorneys. This completely disproves number 2, where Jeremy Hogan says the email chain has to remain in confidence and only between the attorneys. This is definitely a very bad look for the SEC, and that's why I tweeted out, wow, that's bad, because it seems like this on its own completely disproves the SEC's theory that these documents should be attorney-client privileged. Now, I want to quickly give you guys my impression on this filing by the SEC before I show you the conversation between Fred and I, and that is that the SEC is simply using this as a delay tactic. Almost every single attorney I have seen talk about this most recent filing thinks it's dead in the water by the SEC, and it barely holds any merits to it. Almost every single attorney is saying that this is just a delay tactic, and the SEC filed this as a weapon because they know time is the only thing they have on their side in this case. It looks like this was just a shameless attempt by the SEC to further push this case out. I think it's going to do a lot to piss off the court because they are sick of the SEC dragging this thing out. And ultimately, it just looks like another attempt for the SEC to push back, giving XRP the clarity that we and Ripple deserve. Now, you might be wondering, how many more times can the SEC make these crazy claims on why they shouldn't have to hand over the Hinman emails? Well, I'm going to show you guys a conversation between me and Fred because he breaks this thing down beautifully, and I think you guys are going to leave after watching this conversation with a much better understanding of how this impacts the future of this case and what is going to happen over the next couple weeks around this most recent decision. So we saw yesterday that the SEC, for about, I think it's the second time, but it seems like the millionth time, they're trying to apply some kind of privilege to this list of emails by Bill Hinman, where it seems like he kind of incriminated the SEC on their decision-making on what is considered a security and what is not. I was wondering, what's your take on how many times the SEC can go back and forth applying different privileges to these documents?
Well, I would just have to say I have never seen one issue relitigated so many times in such a bizarre, contradictory fashion. I will say I had to go back, and what everybody needs to remember is this whole thing started last year in like March or April of 2021, and we are still arguing over a discovery issue in April of 2022. I mean, that is almost unheard of. So I did have to go back, and in the original order, Judge Netburn did say, hey, There's no deliberative process privilege, but I'm not going to touch attorney-client privilege for right now. So they actually do have the ability to re-argue that. And that's why they kind of held it in the back, because it was another delay tactic that they kind of had in their back pocket. What's going to be so hard for the SEC is that they already committed it to it being Bill Hinman's personal opinion. So I don't know how they're going to argue. Well, I mean, they did argue. I guess I do know how. It's in the brief, but they have argued now that he was the client of the SEC and he was just getting legal advice. And I don't think the judge is going to buy it, just because they've already said it wasn't SEC related. It was his personal opinion. So I don't see how on earth that's going to get by. I do have to dive into it a little more, but the key thing also is that Judge Netburn said in her ruling, hey, here is one example of something that you could redact. So that means that she was saying, here's one example, also indicating do not try and say everything is attorney-client privilege. So I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but I do think it's going to delay everything, which is why I don't think we're going to get a result from Judge Torres on this till midsummer, like July 2022.
Okay, and after they go through this whole attorney-client privilege attempt, is there other attempts that you know of that they could say, all right, there's this other privilege we now want you to review, or is attorney-client kind of their last hope of trying to... I mean, at this point, it looks a lot more like delay, but how many more times can they run through this, because this is already the second time?
Well, they don't have any more legal arguments. I'm pretty sure. I'll have to double check the pleadings. But again, I've mentioned this a couple of times. If Torres denies it, then they can say, we got to appeal this to the Second Circuit because it's so important. And at that point, which I think will be sometime in July, the Second Circuit will either say, we're not even going to hear this. This is not something we're going to hear right now. And then it's over for all intents and purposes. Or the Second Circuit says, okay, we'll hear this. You do your briefing first, SEC, and then Ripple, your briefing comes, a couple months later. Second Circuit takes generally 7 to 9 months to hear things. So if the Second Circuit accepts it, we're pushing everything back on that issue only, not on summary judgment, not on anything else, but on that issue only, another 9, 10 months. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they would try and appeal to the Second Circuit, but I think the Second Circuit would say, no, we're not going to hear this.